You feel it right now, don't you? That low hum underneath everything, the tightness in your chest that never fully goes away even when nothing is technically wrong. You have been told this is a disorder, something broken inside you that needs to be managed, medicated, optimized away. But what if that feeling is not a malfunction? What if it is the most honest part of you, trying to speak? The modern world has a very specific relationship with anxiety. It treats it as a problem to be solved, a chemical imbalance, a productivity blocker, something that gets in the way of your goals, your performance, your ability to keep up. And so you are given tools to silence it, apps that track your mood, breathing exercises on the screen, medications that smooth the edges. And none of this is wrong, exactly, but it misses something fundamental. Because here is the question nobody asks. What if your anxiety is not noise? What if it is signal? Think about the last time you felt truly anxious. Not the surface kind, not the nervous energy before a meeting. The deep kind, the kind that sits in your stomach at 3 a.m. and whispers, "Something is wrong with my life." Most people push that feeling down. They scroll until it fades. They fill the silence with podcasts, with plans, with busyness. They treat the messenger like an intruder, and they never hear the message. And so the anxiety doesn't go away. It gets louder. It becomes chronic. It becomes, according to the modern framework, a disorder. But here is what 2,500 years of contemplative wisdom suggests. The anxiety was never the disease, it was the diagnosis. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a concept called dukkha. It is often translated as suffering, but that translation misses the point. Dukkha is closer to a wheel that is slightly off its axis, a persistent wobble, a misalignment between how things are and how they could be. The Buddha did not say anxiety is bad. He said suffering arises when you cling to things that are impermanent, when you build your identity on things that will change, when you resist the natural flow of life. And what does modern anxiety look like, really? Clinging to a career that does not fulfill you, building an identity around status that can vanish overnight, resisting change because the familiar feels safer than the unknown. That is not a chemical imbalance, that is dukkha, a life slightly off its axis. The Pali Canon, one of the oldest Buddhist texts in existence, describes anxiety not as something to cure, but as a natural response to living out of alignment with truth. The monks who first recorded these teachings did not see restlessness as weakness. They saw it as the beginning of wisdom, the first sign that something deeper within you is ready to wake up. Now here is where this gets really interesting. The Stoics, thousands of miles from the Buddha, arrived at almost the same insight through a completely different path. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of history's most influential philosophers, taught a simple principle. We suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Your anxiety, in Stoic terms, is not caused by what is happening to you. It is caused by the story you are telling yourself about what is happening to you. And modern neuroscience, 23 centuries later, confirms this almost exactly. Researchers at the University of Colorado found that the brain's anxiety response is driven not by external threat, but by prediction error. Your brain constantly predicts what should happen next. When reality does not match the prediction, your nervous system fires an alarm. But here is the part that changes everything. The predictions your brain is using, the model of the world it runs on, was not written by you. It was written by your parents, your teachers, your culture, your social media feed. You are anxious because you are living inside a map that does not match the territory. And the anxiety is not the problem. The anxiety is your deeper self tapping you on the shoulder, saying this map is wrong, find a new one. So what do you do with a message like that? You do what every wisdom tradition has taught for millennia. You stop, you listen, you sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. In mindfulness practice, this is called turning toward. Instead of pushing anxiety away, you turn toward it. You ask, what are you trying to tell me? You notice where it lives in your body. You breathe into it, not to make it disappear, but to hear it more clearly. This is not complicated. 5 minutes of sitting still. Not guided by an app, not measured by a tracker. Just you and whatever arises. The practice is ancient, but the neuroscience is new. Researchers have found that just 8 weeks of regular mindfulness practice reduces reflexive stress responses by 60%. Not because the anxiety is gone, because you have learned to listen to it instead of fight it. And when you listen, something remarkable happens. The anxiety starts to clarify. It stops being a vague cloud of dread, and it becomes specific. I am in the wrong job, I am in the wrong relationship, I am living someone else's life, I have been numbing instead of feeling. That clarity is not comfortable, but it is the beginning of alignment. Seneca, writing 2,000 years ago, described this exact experience. He said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But he was not dismissing the suffering, he was pointing to its source. The gap between the life you are living and the life you know somewhere deep down you are meant to live. That gap is where anxiety lives, and closing it is the only real cure. People who learn to listen to their anxiety instead of suppress it report something unexpected. They don't become less anxious at first, they become more honest, and from that honesty, real change becomes possible. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that participants who practice mindful awareness of their anxiety, rather than trying to eliminate it, showed a 25% reduction in depressive symptoms within 1 week. Not because the circumstances changed, because their relationship to the discomfort changed. The Stoics had a word for this: prohairesis, the power of choice over your inner life. Not control over what happens to you, but sovereignty over how you respond. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Your anxiety is not evidence of weakness, it is evidence of awareness. It means some part of you refuses to accept a life that is out of alignment, even when everyone around you seems fine with theirs. You do not need to overhaul your entire life tonight. That is not what the message is asking for. It is asking for something much smaller and much harder. It is asking you to stop running, to sit with the feeling for 5 minutes without reaching for your phone, to ask, "What is this trying to tell me?" and to actually wait for the answer. You might be surprised by what you hear. It might be something you have known for years, but never let yourself admit. There is a quiet shift happening right now beneath the noise. More people are waking up to the idea that mental health is not just about removing symptoms, it is about finding alignment. That the goal is not a life without anxiety, but a life so aligned that the anxiety has nothing left to say. A 1-week social media detox has been shown to cut anxiety by 16% and depression by 25%. Not because social media is evil, but because the silence gives the message room to be heard. The ancient monks knew this. They did not medicate their restlessness. They sat with it, they listened, and in the listening, they found the path. Your anxiety is not your enemy. It never was. It is the part of you that still remembers what your life was supposed to feel like, and it will keep speaking until you are quiet enough to hear it. The noise will always be there, but so will the message. You just have to stop long enough to listen.